Rojas. Buenas tardes. Today the students are my leaders, and they wanted me to tell you that Brotman Hall is shut down. And that Brotman Hall is shut down means it's a symbol that this is your university. We have been witnesses to the historic efforts of young and old gathering in Tahrir, Egypt, demanding a future that is theirs, a country that is theirs, a constitution and an education that is theirs. There are times when history calls upon you to act. This is our time. This is our university. As a Chicana, I was not supposed to get educated. That basic concept is operationalized into the function of a U.S. system of education that didn't quite change with civil rights. As a Chicana Mexicana who immigrated as a teenager from Mexico, as a woman of color, as a person of color, I was supposed to be a low-wage laborer, not a college-educated professor. That was and still is the master plan for many of our communities in the United States. For me to become a professor of Chicano studies, it took the sweat and tears of protest. It took sleepless nights, jailed nights, and baton blasts. Many put their lives on the line so I could be here today teaching our people's histories. And I will not turn my back on you and the future that should come after you. Change has never come any other way. Power concedes to power, and our power is in our protest. As student fees continue to soar, we are reminded the United States was not built for many of us. 12 years ago, I got a master's degree at San Francisco State. Since then, fees have gone up 500%. Have our salaries gone up 500%? The only difference separating the fees I paid from the fees you paid, this was in the late 90s to today, is a war budget. A war budget that has increasingly siphoned billions from our education, from our communities, from our futures, while taking the lives of hundreds of thousands around the world. From Iraq, where the death toll has reached 100,000, to Mexico, where the death rate as a result of the billions the U.S. is spending on weapons and military, fomenting the war on drugs, has also reached 100,000 in just the last 4 years. In the people's budget, if there isn't enough money for education, there isn't enough money for war. Maybe in the people's budget, war doesn't even have a line item. 1 hour of military spending alone could pay for an entire year's budget for nearly all sexual assault and domestic violence agencies in the entire country. Instead, they're being forced to shut their doors. It's not a question of there isn't enough money. It's a question of there isn't enough money for what? For what is not deemed a priority. College is the most dangerous place for young women. The risk of sexual assault is the highest of any other time in your life. Yet sexual assault services on campuses are being cut. It's always a matter of priorities. There isn't enough money to fund a GLBT task force on campus in light of repeated attacks on queer and trans folks on this campus, but there's enough money to fund a racist, sexist, and homophobic newspaper. And my dreamers, your Dream Act. Let me hear from the dreamers. Not just education has been stolen by the Pentagon, your Dream Act has been stolen by the Pentagon. Whose dream is it to kill or be killed in war? That wasn't your dream. It's to have access to education. That's your dream. But a dream is not a dream when it's hijacked by the Pentagon. Only about a third of undocumented students would qualify for citizenship through the school option. The rest would have to go to war. Murder is never a path to access humanity. Some states are passing in-state tuition reforms. This is your dream, not the Pentagon's. This is your dream, not the US's. So I say dream big. Free education and amnesty for all. What's crazy about that? Crazy is what we pay for wars against fictitious enemies. They think we're expendable to the future of this country. Let's show them we're not. In occupied Palestine, college students face multiple checkpoints similar to the ones undocumented students face on their way to college here. The Palestinian occupation is funded by the U.S. government. It's the largest recipient of U.S. foreign aid, with a line item that continues to grow like that of other war items against the cutting of virtually every other social expenditure. We cannot afford to unlink our struggles because your right to an education is connected to a Palestinian's right to an education, to migrants' rights for education and to citizenship, and to women's rights to a safe education free from sexual assault, which are also connected to a woman's right in Juarez to live free from sexual assault. Only thinking through connections between struggles allows us to see the absurdity behind the passage of Assembly Bill 900 in the state of California. $12 billion allotted to build the largest single prison building project in world history. Over 50,000 beds. And the CSU gets cut? Shouldn't we be building classrooms so thousands of students don't have to be turned away? So that you can all get the classes you need to graduate? 1 in 9 black men are already in prison. 1 in 35 Latinos and women of color have the fastest growing rates of incarceration. Apparently someone made breathing while brown and black illegal. What else explains this? They'd rather have us in prisons than in school. To have us working at pennies an hour making Starbucks, Microsoft, Boeing, Victoria's Secret CEOs super rich. Ya basta con la torpe injusticia. Today, this is Tahrir. We are all Egyptian if Egyptian at this moment means to be free. Like Palestinians say, because I exist, I resist. Only you can stop this. Only you. It is up to you. Every moment in our lives we must confront injustice, like the Mohawks living across the U.S.-Mexico border teach us when they interfere in immigrants getting detained by ICE. It is against our great law to do nothing, they said. Their lesson is an important one, because if you don't stop and grab hold of your destiny, there won't be one for the next generation. So dream, and dream big, not just for your education, for an education for all, a free education, the education you want. This is your university, and this is your education. This is our time. This is our time. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. En dignidad y rebelión, keep on, fight on.